And welcome to the Cruise Files. I'm Cheryl Baker, and in this programme we aim to inspire and educate about the wonderful world of cruise holidays. In this edition we're talking river cruising, a form of holidaying that's growing tremendously in popularity. It can offer you a more relaxed and destination focused getaway, a chance for you to go off the beaten track and explore ports of call you may never have even heard of. And here to tell us more about what river cruising has to offer is Laura Dawson from APT River Cruise. Welcome, Laura.
Hello.
Now, I've been on ocean cruises, and we've talked a lot about ocean cruises on this programme, but not river cruising. So tell me all about it.
Okay, so I think the best way to kind of look at a river cruise would be more to consider it as a floating hotel or perhaps an escorted tour. Yet it still has the key selling points of cruising, where you can unpack once and see all of those amazing destinations. It is on a much smaller scale, but with that comes more intimacy, fine food and 24-hour scenery.
And it's growing in popularity, isn't it?
It is. Like, just in the few years that I've been in the industry, it's grown considerably. There's more and more river cruise lines out there, giving more choice to customers with what they're looking for. And yeah, it's just more and more ships as well.
What kind of person goes on a river cruise?
It would be someone who's active, they want to get around and see lots of different places, someone who has a wide range of different interests. The great thing about a river cruise is, while sightseeing is included, there is also a lot of free time. So if you want to just go off and do your own thing, take a bike ride or do whatever, there's enough to kind of appeal to anyone.
So, all right, this is my first river cruise. What should I expect? What's the ship like? Is it a ship?
Yeah, we like to call it a ship, a river ship. Okay, so on the ship, you're looking at a maximum of maybe 164 passengers.
Oh, quite so much smaller than an ocean-going liner.
Yes, it only takes 82 couples to make a full ship.
Right.
On board, again, lots of different styles, from traditional looking to more modern and contemporary. You'll usually have a fitness room, a salon, different restaurants. The cabins are incredibly spacious, lots and lots of leisure areas for you to sit and relax in. And then in terms of actually off the ship, lots and lots of different ports of call. You're stopping somewhere at least once a day. So yeah, it's kind of a lot to kind of take in, but it's all there in a much smaller space.
Oh, okay. So if you think of an ocean-going liner, it's that, only
condensed,
much more condensed, and a lot more intimate.
Yes.
And so you mentioned the food. Tell me about the food and drink. The restaurants, obviously it doesn't have as many restaurants as the big ships.
Yeah, so again, each river cruise line is different. So on an average cruise, you'll have the main restaurant. So in the morning, breakfast could be either a buffet breakfast, or you can choose from the menu and order something separate instead. You'll then have lunch, which again, you can either go to the buffet or you can order a la carte. Then for the evening meal is usually 5 or 6 courses, again, or a la carte, and different menus to choose from.
And is it like with the cruise ships, is it all included?
In most cases, all food will be included, and then depending on which river cruise line you book, you'll usually get your drinks all included as well. But with the food, like, river cruising is really, really good if you've got dietary requirements too, because they cater really, really well for that.
Right, okay. And how about entertainment?
So entertainment is more low-key than the big ocean cruise lines. There isn't the space for the huge cabaret or West End shows. Typically, you'll have a musician that will travel with the ship. He'll be entertaining clients every evening. And then as you go through each port, we'll often have local entertainment come on board, whether that be musicians or singers or dancers, comedians, something a bit different. But obviously with a river cruise, in some cases you are in ports overnight. So if you do want to get off after dinner and explore the city lights, then you can do that too.
What kind of rivers do you cruise?
Okay, so within Europe, the most popular ones would be either the Rhine or the Danube. We also have the French rivers. You've got the Seine, Bordeaux, the Rhone. If you want a little bit more sunshine, you've got the Douro in Portugal. But then Asia, so you can do the Mekong, the Irrawaddy is really, really popular right now. There's the Yangtze, the Lower Ganges. There's so many options out there.
And I thought that there were only a couple of different companies that do river cruising, but actually there are lots, aren't there?
There is, yeah. There's lots and lots. So if river cruising is something that you're interested in, it's really, really good to kind of do your research. There's so many of us out there. The inclusions do vary, as do the price points. So really kind of think what it is that you want to get out of a river cruise. If you are into your wines and you want to try all the different like local things as you go along, then get one that includes your drinks. If you want to make the most out of seeing all of the destinations, then get one that includes all your sightseeing. So yeah, there's enough to suit everyone.
If you haven't cruised before at all, do you think a river cruise is a good starting point?
It would be, yeah. As I say, for anyone that's enjoyed a city break before, river cruising is great because you, in some cases, sail up to 5 different countries in one go, but you're only unpacking once. You've got that real land connection still, so also anyone that's perhaps done an escorted tour before and want to be able to get off and see lots of places, it's perfect for them.
Well, you talk about getting off and going on a trip, or what kind of excursions do you do?
Let me try and think of an example. In Amsterdam, if we start with, you could choose to do perhaps a canal cruise, you could visit the Anne Frank's Museum, you could go out to the Zaanstad's Windmill Village and take a tour there. Going over to the Mekong, you can visit Angkor Wat for those infamous sunrise pictures, you could do the Coochie tunnels, there's lots and lots included. The
great thing about a river cruise is that, for instance, let's say the Thames,
yes.
You know, there are the smaller ships that can come up and dock sort of in Canary Wharf and places like that. So you can actually go to the ports of call that the big ships couldn't even dream of.
Yes. Yeah, in some cases you can literally walk 5 minutes and you're right in the centre of town, which makes it really, really personable, and you can kind of tailor the holiday more to your needs then.
So if you were cruising for the first time on a river cruise, what would you suggest is a good itinerary as a first-time cruiser?
Well, one of my favourites would be the Danube, which sails from Budapest, it takes in Vienna, and you usually finish off around Nuremberg area. The reason that's one of my favourites is because it's arguably the most picturesque. So if you want those wow factor moments, going along, seeing all these beautiful churches and things right from the river, that's a really good one. In terms of sightseeing, then probably the Rhine. There's so much history along those rivers, so if you want to get more for your money in terms of what you see, then the Rhine's a great one to start at.
Do you love river cruising yourself? You do?
I do, I love it.
What's your favourite? What's your favourite port of call?
Favourite port of call is probably Porto. It's beautiful, the sun was shining, you stop and you've got the amazing views of Porto where you actually dock, and then it's just a short walk to go and do what you need to do.
One of the things that a lot of people who haven't cruised before, they're concerned about seasickness.
Yes.
So presumably on a river cruise, that's something you don't have to think about.
Not at all, no. There's no motion, so you do not need to worry about seasickness at all.
And you don't go fast, presumably?
I'd say if you asked a captain, he'd like to say so, but but no, it's much more leisurely pace. Yeah, you've got no rockiness. In some cases, you don't even know that you're actually travelling, which is great.
I've found that even on the big cruise ships, sometimes you don't even think that you're on the water at all.
Yeah.
I mean, times have changed, and it is growing in popularity, isn't it? Not cruising across the board.
Yes.
But river cruising. I'm talking more and more about river cruising to people.
It's really growing. It's becoming much more trendy. Yeah. I think back in the day, people would just see it as like once you've got to a certain age, that's when you'd take a river cruise. It's not the case anymore, especially with those more exotic rivers, like the Irrawaddy in Myanmar. People are wanting...
Sorry, Irrawaddy in...
The Irrawaddy in Myanmar.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, well, or Burma, as it's also known as, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of companies now that have river cruises going all the way from Yangon to Mandalay, and that's really opened up more eyes because people are wanting to get there before it gets too commercialised. And doing it on a river cruise is a great way of seeing the whole destination.
Is it a seasonal thing? Is there a best time to go?
Depending on which river you do, you can usually get a river cruise any time of the year. The German rivers are really great around Christmas time because you've got all of the German markets and you can go off and all the smells and the food, it's amazing. If you want the weather, then naturally it's best to go probably the British summertime. But yeah, I think each season has something to offer. And especially if you did one of the, say, Amsterdam to Budapest cruises, you are going through 5 countries. So no matter what time of year you travel, you'll probably experience different weathers anyway.
So with the big ocean liners, they usually dock around about 8 o'clock in the morning and they leave about 5 to 6 in the evening.
Yeah.
How is it with a river cruise?
It really depends on the river. So using Porto as an example, it was a 7-night cruise, and the first 2 nights we were in Porto for the whole duration. So for that time you can go off and do what you want, and then for the next few days we had 2 or 3 full mornings of sailing, and then the whole afternoon we were stopped for you to get on and off and have the sightseeing, and then the final day you had the afternoon sailing instead. So it does vary depending on which river you want to travel on.
What's the typical duration of a river cruise?
Typically it would be either 7 or 14 nights.
So really, if you want to do a river cruise, you should do your homework. Is it like with the big cruise ships, you can get sort of 3-star, 4-star, 5-star?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for, basically.
You do. And that's the thing, I think. Even working in the industry, sometimes it is hard to keep track of all those differences. So I understand it can be a little bit daunting, but that's why using a travel agent is a great resource for that, because they are a little bit more kind of savvy with all the differences that are out there, and then they can pick one that truly suits your needs. Yeah.
Do you find that most people choose a particular cruise because of the ports of call?
Yeah. Definitely. And then I suppose it also depends on the sailing. So, for example, the Rhine River is a much longer river, so there's a lot more sailing, whereas the Rhone is much shorter, so you'll find that the ship's stopped and you can get off and do things a little bit more often. So if you're a keen sailor and you want to kind of be interested in all that, going through the locks and everything, then the Rhine's a great option. But yeah.
All right, well, we're going to go to a break now, but I want to talk some more about the locks when we come back just after this. See you in a minute. Hello and welcome back to the Cruise Files. Laura Dawson from APT River Cruises is still with me, and you mentioned going through locks. I just imagine little boats and things going. I can't imagine a ship going through a lock.
I must admit, when I first did my river cruise, I was expecting the barge locks. I was expecting 2 men at the side wheeling you on through, and the first lock I went through was in Amsterdam, and it was so huge and industrial, but then other parts of the rivers it is a little bit more kind of quaint with the older bridges and things. But yeah, it's a fascinating experience.
I went through the Panama Canal once, and I looked over the side and I went, ooh, and took a photo, and then I went in. But all the men were going, the engineering in this, you know.
Yeah. And actually, I've mentioned already the Amsterdam to Budapest cruise, which takes around 15 days. For that duration, you're looking at about 60 to 65 locks.
Wow.
Which, as you say, it's very, very exciting at the beginning, but then after a while you get quite used to it, and you don't come away from all your amazing food or your spa treatments to have a look.
So tell me about the ports of call. What kind of ports of call are they, and how long do you stay in them, for instance?
Okay, so typically you would always have enough time to do at least a guided tour. That's if you want to. It is optional. You don't have to go off with the guides. So that would be, I'd say, a minimum of 2 hours, but in some cases you do stay overnight.
That was my next question.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, sometimes we do stay overnight, or just spend like a whole afternoon in port too.
Do you ever do 2 ports in a day?
Yeah, so you could do like you could wake up in a port and then go off and do an early morning tour and then sail and arrive into a port. So we could do it that way.
Life on board, does it reflect the port of call where you've just been, or where you're just going, that kind of thing, like, for say, with entertainment or food or drink?
We try to. So especially the drinks, often the wine is produced in the area that we're visiting. The waiters like to get quite involved with all the different themes, so you might see them one day in like a German apron and then the other day in, I don't know, a French one. So it is quite themed, and going back to the entertainment, we'll have perhaps like Bavarian bands come on board,
brilliant.
When I was in Portugal there was this amazing group, and there was probably about 10 or 20 men that just came onto the ship, so you can imagine what all the ladies' reaction was like. And they were all musicians, and they started jumping and doing all this traditional Portuguese folk music. It was fantastic.
That involved jumping. I want to see that.
I know, it was a wonderful wonder that their heads didn't touch the roof. They were really, really skilled at it. Yeah.
What's the dress code? Is it casual? Do you have formal nights?
It's much more casual than an ocean cruise.
Right.
Again, depending on the cruise line, you will find that the day is very casual. Jeans, make sure you have comfortable shoes for the walk-in, layers, because again, you don't always know what the weather will be depending where you are. But then in the evenings, typically smart casual. There will be a couple of evenings where there may be a captain's farewell party or a welcome party where you may want to get a little bit more dressed up, but dinner suits and formal ball gowns are not required at all.
So you should bring perhaps a cross-section of clothes, because especially if you're in Europe, you don't really know if it's going to rain.
Yeah, I'd recommend so, just so that you're comfortable. But as I said, because you're in ports so often, if you did forget to bring something, you're not too far from being able to pick something new up. It's always a good excuse.
How about sunbathing? Do you have sunbathing, sort of the Lido deck kind of thing?
Yeah. So on the sun deck, there's plenty of sun lounges, as well as nice tables and chairs to sit around. Many ships will have either a heated swimming pool or a heated whirlpool on the sun deck. And then there's usually an area at the front of the ship where if you don't want to be on the top, you can sit at the front and feel like you're the one sailing the ship.
It does look lovely, and it looks very romantic. Do you get lots of couples?
We do, yeah, we get lots of couples, especially people celebrating big milestone birthdays or special wedding anniversaries.
Now, you said that it's an active holiday, but what if you have disabilities?
Okay, so on some of the ships you do have a lift which goes between the two middle decks. So as long as you can comfortably walk up to the sun deck, which is where you often need to actually depart the ship, then you'll be fine.
How about solo travellers?
A river cruise is a great holiday for a solo traveller because of the intimacy. You get to meet lots of people. Usually there is only one cabin that's specifically designed for a solo traveller, so it's important to book in advance. However, occasionally special offers do come up. So I would recommend waiting for those special offers where there is perhaps no single supplements, just so that you're not penalised and you're still getting that amazing experience and not having to pay anything extra for it.
It's it'd be a nice thing to do if you're on your own, because of the great ports of call and, you know, socialising with people you've never met before.
Yeah.
It's once you've broken down the barriers, and like, I believe it or not, I can be quite introvert with people that I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, in that kind of intimacy, I suppose you make new friends.
Yeah, it's very, very friendly.
Yeah.
Especially the English-speaking river cruises, because you can like share stories over a nice cocktail at the bar.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And the staff as well, the crew. And even you like, do you have stewards looking after your cabins and things?
Yeah. So again, depending on the ship that you book, or in some cases depending on which cabin category you book, you will have a butler service. Otherwise, it would just be the staff. But the staff are so personable. They, right from day two, they'll know everyone's name, everyone's favourite drink, and they'll really, really look after you. Just going back actually to the intimacy though, for anyone who feels that a river cruise is a little bit too intimate, it's amazing how you can be on such a small ship but feel like you've got so much space. Like you don't feel like you are sat in each other's pockets, and there's always enough room for everyone to comfortably sit in the lounge or in the dining room without having to do different seatings.
When you get into ports of call, do people go on the excursions that you've organised, or do they do their own thing, or do they even stay on board and just relax?
It's a real mixture, and again, on some river cruise companies you can actually pick and choose what sightseeing you do. So if you don't want to go off and do the guided tour, there may be 3 other options that you can choose, and it's all included in the price.
Yeah.
So I'd say on those cruises, you'd probably find that most people would go off and do whatever they've chosen to do. But then if it's just a guided tour, then, and perhaps if someone's already maybe been to that destination, then they're the types that would probably either stay on board or take one of the complimentary bicycles and go off and do a circular route themselves.
Complimentary bicycles?
Yes.
What, you have them on board?
Yeah.
Oh, what a great idea.
In most destinations, especially on the main, like the Rhine and the Danube rivers, then yeah, you can.
Is there a particular river or particular route that seems to be favourite with passengers, and do they come back time and time again?
You get a lot of repeat customers. I would say one of the most popular itineraries would be the Amsterdam to Budapest, because you're getting so many countries in one. And then once people have done that, that's when they then start venturing on other rivers in Europe or in Asia.
And do some people go on river cruises because they can go off the beaten track sort of thing?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like with the Mekong, for example, you see so much more from the ship. All that local way of life. You've got people and families washing their clothes in the Mekong River. It's things that you just wouldn't see from doing a land-based tour.
Or one of the big ships that can't go to those ports of call.
Yeah.
And did you include, I can't remember, with when you said what's included, is tipping included as well?
Definitely for lots of river cruise suppliers, yeah. Again, it's something that you'd have to look at, but I can think of at least 3 companies off the top of my head that do include tipping and gratuities. And
one thing that's on the top of lots of people's lists, unfortunately, is Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Can you get Wi-Fi on board?
You can. And again, in most cases, it's complimentary, and that will be both in your cabin and in the public spaces too. If you don't want to use the Wi-Fi, then there's always computers available as well. So you've got the best of both worlds.
Now, on the big cruise ships, you've got indoor cabins, outdoor cabins, cabins with a window, cabin with a balcony, suites. How is that? What's the cabins like on a river cruise?
You will always have a view of the river. So as a minimum, you'll have a twin window, which is a little bit higher up, but you can still see out.
So there's no inside cabins
no inside cabins at all. No.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So carry on. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. So no inside cabins. You will either have the twin window, French balcony or Juliet balcony style, so you can open it up and get all that fresh air, or an outside balcony, so you can physically sit outside, nice glass of wine, and watch the scenery go by.
And do you have all the stuff that, especially the stuff that the Brits like a kettle and a TV and the general, what's in the cabin?
You do get what we call an infotainment system, which will have a TV, movies, music, computer. Kettles aren't usually in the cabins, but there is always a tea and coffee station which is available 24/7, so you can help yourself. And going back to the butler service, if you are booked in a cabin where there's a butler service available, then they can deliver it to you in the morning.
On the big ships as well, they give you every night, they give you a newspaper to tell you what's happening the next day. Do you do that as well?
We do that as well. Yeah. It's very exciting.
And that's a general thing, all the river cruises do the same sort of thing.
Yeah, they'll always do the same thing. And on the back, you'll have literally time by time exactly where you're going. I always recommend taking a photo of that page so that then all the photos that follow that day, you know where it's come from, because there's so many things to take photos of when you're doing a river cruise. People
that have cruised on the big cruise ships and the ocean going cruise ships, what would you say to entice them to a river cruise?
The 360-degree views, being able to stop right in the heart of each town and village so you can wander off at your own leisure. There's no lengthy queues of getting off. It is a case of if you're ready to go, then you just pick up your boarding pass and off you go. The food is incredible. There's so much choice. The timings of when food is available is a little bit more flexible as well, so you can usually pick something up throughout the day, and just having everything included. So you're not having to then pay for your cruise up front and then add on extras.
I really will try river cruising. I think it's the way forward for me.
Yeah.
It's on my list, on my bucket list. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for watching. I'll see you again next time with more from the Cruise Files. See you then.